How's it going, YouTube? Right, we're back in the camper. I thought today we'd carry on with the camper, and what we're going to do is we're going to upgrade the stereo that's in this van. This is a Peugeot Boxer, long wheelbase. It's got the standard stereo system in it. It's the professional model, I think it is, the one that's got the sat-nav and all that sort of stuff. It's got TomTom on it. It's got the cruise control and the steering wheel controls and all the things like that. If I just turn the ignition on, this is how it comes. Obviously just a normal radio. It's got the TomTom as well, but last time I used it, it was literally when I was bringing the van home. I was navigating home, I took a wrong turn, and by the time it actually rerouted to where I was supposed to be, it was a week later. It's got hands-free and everything else. The only thing it has got that I probably will miss is it's got this trip here that tells you the miles per gallon and things like that. I don't think I'm going to get that on the new stereo system, but it's not the end of the world, to be honest. So what we're going to do is we're going to rip this out and we're going to fit a new one. Let's go and have a look what we've got. And for anybody that's following this camper build, you can see stuff's going on. I've got all the insulation and that fitted now on the walls. Roof light vent up in the back. Single passenger seat. So look out for those videos. And if you're not already subscribed to this camper build and you want to be, don't forget to subscribe and see more about this build. Let's go inside and have a look at this stereo that we're going to fit in this van. I was originally going to fit this, the Eonon S8. I've had this one in the Volkswagen Transporter for about a year. I've just changed this one for one with a smaller screen. My original plan was to fit this one in the Peugeot Boxer. But I was approached by another company to offer me another stereo for the camper, and there's a few things about the new stereo that I seem to think I prefer over this one, so I thought I'd give it a go and we'd fit this new one instead of this one, and hoping it's going to be as good, if not better. So as we go through, we'll see those things that I prefer over this one. Right, so what have I got? Right, we've got a few bits. We've got the car stereo itself. It's an Eonon double DIN car stereo, 10-inch display, the same as the Eonon one, with a slight difference. It runs on Android Auto the same. We'll talk about all its specs once we've unboxed it. So we'll get that out and have a look at that in a minute. What else have we got? The Peugeot Boxer as standard has got DAB radio, so I'd like to have kept that. This car stereo offers some optional extras, one of them is which is a DAB upgrade, so they very kindly sent me that as well because I wanted to maintain the DAB, so we're going to fit that but this is an option. And then I bought a few extra bits myself which we needed to fit the kit, one of which is this double fascia fitting kit. We'll open this in a minute and we'll have a look at it. The other thing I wanted as well was the Eonon. I'm assuming it comes with a reversing camera as well. We'll have a look, I'm sure it does. But what I wanted is, I've changed it and I've bought one of these. This one's one specifically for the Boxer, and it's like a brake light and reversing camera in one. We'll have a look at that in a second on the bench. So it just looks a bit tidier, so I'm going to be fitting this one. Right, so what we'll need to do now is I'll get this bench cleared off behind me, we'll get the Boxers on the bench, let's unbox them, see what you get, go through a few specs, then we'll go out to the van, we'll fit it in the van, I'll get it all up and running, get it all nice, and then what we'll do is I'll set up a camera and then we'll just go through the operation of it. So it might be a bit of a long video, but hopefully you're aboard for the ride. So let's get it on the bench and let's get it all open. Let's see what you get. I'll go through those fascia boxes as well and see what you get in one of those kits. Obviously everything I've bought, I'll put links down to below of where I got it from. If I've got any discount links for the car stereo, I'll put those as well. I think I have. So let's get on the bench and let's see what you get. Right, here we are with the car stereo itself. So let's get this box open and see what you get in it. Right, inside we've got a box, manuals and instructions, and here I'm assuming this is the unit itself. Yes, it is. Comes initially in two parts. We've got the unit and we've got the screen. What we'll do is we'll stick those to one side and we'll have a look at those in a minute. Let's have a look what you get in this box. This should be all the looms and things like that, so let's open it up and go through what you get. Right, if we go through them just quickly, obviously we'll see more of these as we fit them, but we've got a 4G antenna, that looks like a Wi-Fi antenna, GPS antenna, auxiliary outputs, a couple of looms for auxiliary inputs and outputs. We've also got here a little box, as you can see. If I push this open, this has got a little SIM card slot in it, so you can have a 4G connection on this as well if you put your own SIM card in there. USB input sockets there for if we're plugging a phone directly in or any additional storage or anything like that. Another one there, it says USB on the plug. Your standard ISO connection power plug there. We've got an adapter to go from this type of plug to our vehicle plug. So depending on what type of vehicle you're fitting in, you might have to check to see if it's got the ISO type plugs or if you need to get an adapter. In our case, we've got an adapter to fit. We'll have a look at that in a minute. And then we've got a microphone for the hands-free. But what we'll do is we'll seal this as we're plugging in the car stereo into the vehicle. Right, the car stereo system itself. Let's take it out of this bag. This screen here, this just slips down and you pull these little tabs out here to let it up and down. Right, I've just clipped it in for now, just while we're having a look around it. Some of the main things with this car stereo system that took my eye was, one, the shape of the screen. You can see how it tapers in as it gets towards the bottom. I quite like that. And it's also a 10.1 inch QLED screen, the same as the Etoto, so it's a really good high quality screen. The price of this system is considerably cheaper than the Etoto system as well. And this runs on Android 13, whereas the Etoto is still on Android 12. So they was the main things that made me think I do want to try this and see what it's like in the vehicle. Right, so the main features, as I've just said, Android 13. It's a Qualcomm QCM6125 quad-core ARM Cortex-A73 2 GHz processor, if that means anything to you at all. So I think it's not a bad one actually. It's a double DIN size obviously, so you need a 2 DIN hole to stick it in. This is wireless Android Auto compatible and wireless CarPlay compatible as well, so you won't need to plug your phones into it, but you can if you so wish. And we've got full support for steering controls, and it supports screen mirroring and things like that. Obviously we've got built-in Wi-Fi, so this can give out a bit of a hotspot and stuff like that if you're using your SIM card in this. Or it can work the other way around, and if you're using your phone as a hotspot, you can connect to your phone using this via Wi-Fi. All of the usual things. We've got Bluetooth 5, FM radio, that sort of stuff. And built-in graphic equalizers and things like that. As you can see on the back, we've got a HDMI output because it supports the screen mirroring from this system. So if you've got an extra screen somewhere else in your car, it will project whatever's on this screen to that screen as well. So what I might do at some point in the future is I might wire this up to the leisure battery in the vehicle. So if I'm wanting to use this for streaming, I can. And then we've got all our plugs across the back. This is for all the inputs and outputs and everything else that we're going to have on the vehicle, which we'll see when we fit it. And that's probably about all I can tell you from the actual physical spec of it. We've got some little capacitive buttons here. I don't normally particularly like capacitive ones that much, but we'll see what these are like. We've got a little mic in the corner of the screen there, and it's also got a little reset button. You can angle this to however you want it once it's in the vehicle. And using those little hand things here that you can pull out, you can make this screen move up and down to get it into the position you want, which we'll have a look at once it's installed. Right, next thing, we've got this optional extra, which is a DAB adapter. So if I open this up, it is literally this little USB thing here. If we pull off this cap, we've got a USB socket there, so we can plug it into one of the USB inputs. On the back of it, we've got a socket there for this DAB aerial here. And that is literally it. We've got a little manual in it as well that tells us how to use it and set it up. We'll have a look at that once we've got it all ready. But this should give us DAB on the stereo system. Right, this bit I bought myself from Amazon. This is the fascia kit to actually fit it. Let's have a look. This should also have what we need for the CAN bus adapters and the loom adapters and things like that. Hopefully we'll find out when we open it up. Alright, so looking inside. Let's get everything out so we can have a look. We have got here the fascia itself. I will have a look at the instructions when we come to fit it, but this, I assume, is some double DIN fitting brackets there for the double SIN stereo. In here is the double DIN fascia. This replaces the car stereo system and gives us a double DIN sized hole. Right, the main loom. CAN bus box and the loom itself. We've got some instructions inside. I'll have a look at those before we do it. This is a little installation guide of how to fit it. The CAN bus box, this is what maintains the usability of any signals going to the car stereo system, like the steering wheel controls and things like that. So it makes it a little bit easier to wire it all in. And then we've got the loom itself. This will plug into the vehicle loom. And as you can see on this side, this is a standard ISO plugs. So this will plug into the loom that came with our car stereo system. Here we've got a little adapter for the antenna. Hopefully this should plug into the vehicle antenna and then adapt it into a normal type of plug. And this will want to plug into like an auxiliary out power from the car stereo system. We'll look at that later. And lastly, this one is apparently a universal patch lead. I've got no idea what this one is, but we'll figure it out later. Oh, this one looks like it's probably the steering wheel controls or something like that. One end of it goes into this box, the other one end of it comes out the box, and then that gives us our steering controls and things to plug into the stereo system. But with those adapter kits, like anything else, make sure you get the correct one for your vehicle. That one was obviously for the Peugeot Boxer 2014 onwards. Right, finally, we've got the backup camera. I've just realised it's a good job I bought this because we didn't get one with the car stereo itself, did we? But this is one as well that I got off either eBay or Amazon, I can't remember. I'll put links to where I got it from in the description. We've got a little gasket there to go around. This is a brake light, and you know the high level brake light above the rear doors. This is a brake light and a camera all in one. So what we'll do is we'll take the brake light out of the vehicle at the minute and we'll replace it with this one, and it's a nice and tidy looking reverse camera, so you've not got an extra camera that you screw to your vehicle somewhere. It's kind of all built in. We've got a little power loom there for the camera, and a nice long cable, 10 meters apparently, so hopefully that's long enough to get from the rear of the vehicle to the front. We'll find out. And then we can have a nice reversing camera on it as well, so we'll fit that as well as part of this. Right, so that's about it. We've got quite a lot to fit, haven't we? So let's get out to the van, let's take out the original car stereo system, and let's get this fitted. Right, first thing we need to do is we need to remove this car stereo. As you can see there, look, we've got 4 holes. What you're supposed to do is use some radio removal keys to get that out, but I'm not sure if I've got any or not, so let's teach you how to steal car radios, and let's get some little Allen keys or drill bits or something like that and stuff them in there. It's got some little clips that you put, when you push in, it pushes them over and it pushes the clips out of the way, so this will pull out. So let me get something to stuff in those holes and see if I can get this stereo system out. Right, all I've done is I've just got a standard Allen key set. I've got a couple of them, and I've found some Allen keys that fit in these holes, so I've stuffed them in. I got the biggest ones I could to fit in the holes because you need it to push the little pins over at the side. So what I need to do is if you grab these and as you pull them out, what it does is it levers the pin. So if I grab both sides and I'll pull them out, pull them outwards like that, apart and out at the same time, there you are, that releases the stereo. So what I want to do now is the next thing is I'll just unplug all this stuff on the back just to get this stereo system out of the way. Right, so if you have a look at the back of the stereo system now, you can see those little clips there, and that's all you're doing is you're just pushing those out of the way when you put something through that hole. What I want to do now is this cage here, there's 4 bolts there. I want to take those out and just get that out of the way just so I can see properly, because I'm assuming I'm going to have to leave this out anyway. So if I take that off, I don't want to cut my hands on it while I'm looking at everything else. Right, there are T25 Torx bit to take those out. We've got 4 of those. Let's just get those out of the way. Right, that's that out. So the next thing is we need to get our little loom kit and get all that installed. Right, those instructions that I had with that adapter kit was absolutely terrible. But I've sat here, I've worked it all out. Let's have a look, see what I've done. On the back of the adapter itself, those little plates I've got, they screw into there. And then that gives like the double DIN cage that'll hold in the radio. At the top, it's got some like, if you can see them. At the top, it's got some like little clips that you have to put on. They push back and clip under the back of there. It's not the best thing in the world. I mean, this adapter kit with all this wiring and everything, this was nearly £100 on its own. So I'll put a link to it, but you decide if you want to use it or not. So that's how the cage mounts to the stereo system. We'll look at that in a minute. The main loom, I literally just plugged it into this loom here. And then the ISO loom that came with this stereo system, we plugged it into the ISO socket there, and then that was that one done. The radio loom, the radio aerial loom, that one, I didn't know which one to plug it in, but I figured it out. It's this one, the white one. So that plugged into there. The aerial obviously plugs into the back of the stereo system. And then it had like a blue one that's like a remote power thing. So when you turn the stereo system on, it puts power out to this, which powers this little amplifier thing in there. So what I did is, in this adapter loom here, I cut into it, and I used a Wago connector there. So I cut into this blue cable, because that's the same thing. That's like an auxiliary output to amplifiers and things like that. So I cut into that, and I wired it into there. It doesn't make a lot of difference, to be honest, whether that's in or out, so I don't know whether you actually do need it, but I put it in there. Right, I've just realised my little mic wasn't turned on, so I've just turned it back on. Hopefully you could hear me nice and clear in that last video. Right, where was we? This here, the CAN bus adapter, I plugged that in. The other side of it, this was fairly straightforward, to be honest. It's got lots of different configurations depending on whether you put in Kenwood, Alpine, whatever stereo in it. But the Chinese learning one, what it said was you don't need to use this here. I think the Toto's got this fitting in the back. I'm not sure, I can't remember, but it's irrelevant anyway. You don't need it. It's got this key 1 and key 2 wires, and a black one for ground. I did the same thing with the ground. I used a little Wago connector there. I cut into the ground wire, and I added the black cable there from this ground into theirs to ground that. The key 1 and the key 2 coming out the back of the stereo system. It's literally got there, look, called steering wheel 1 and steering wheel 2. I just use Wago connectors again because I quite like these, and I connected them into key 1 and key 2 retrospectively. And then I've tried it, and I've set it all up on the system, and it works. The steering wheel controls work. We'll have a look at that when we look at the operation of the stereo. So that's that bit all done. One thing I was quite disappointed with this kit that I got was down there. We've got a USB socket. This is the other end of it, and it's got one of those type of USB connectors. Obviously you can't plug that into a normal USB connector, so I need an adapter for that, and it didn't come with that adapter. I'm quite disappointed actually, because you'd have expected it to come with an adapter so we can adapt that out to plug into a normal USB. So a little bit later on, I'm going to have to get an adapter for that to go from these type, so I can plug this one into this one, and then what that'll do is it'll let me use that socket down there. For now, I'll have to manage without it. But that's not the stereo system's fault, that is the adapter kit's fault. Right, so next job, before we go any more, we've got some extra bits we need to fit. We've got 4G antenna, microphone, I'll find somewhere to put that. We've got a Wi-Fi antenna and a GPS antenna. So what I'm going to do is, what I'll probably do actually, is the GPS, I'll just fit on the side there, and then I'll run the wire down that gap and across the dashboard. The 4G and the Wi-Fi I will probably leave in there and just stick up to the top somewhere, because they normally get a half decent signal anyway. The next job I need to do is I need to fit this camera and then run the cable all the way down to the back of the van and get that plugged in. And then what I can do is I can finish plugging this in and we can install it in. So let's get some bits installed. Right, what I have done before I go any further is I've just installed this fascia plate here. That literally I just fed the radio in and then screwed in those side bits using the screws provided. Right, next job, let's take this brake light out here and change it for that one with a camera in it. So we've just got a couple of screws and we can pull that out. Right, that's this light off. Once again, we've got Wago connectors I need to connect onto this. I'll cut that plug off. And then this camera up here, we've got these red and black wires there for the brake lights, so I'll use some Wago connectors to connect those up. One thing I've noticed is it's got these like bolts on, whereas those ones there were screwed on. If you look in the back there, it's got like a little nut on the back. If I take that nut off, then this bit should come off, and then those bolts should go through, and then I can put the nut on again from the back. Right, so there's the Wago connectors done. That's all wired up. I've jammed the brake pedal down with something just so I can test them. There you are. That's all working. So what I'll do is I'm going to get this back in the hole now. These bits did come out how I expected. They had like a 10mm nut on the back of this, and then I just took them off, and then these bits came out. So what I can do is I can put that back in there. I've got that little gasket thing stuck on the back of there. So I'm going to get this in, and let's have a look at wiring up the camera side of it. Right, so anybody that's interested in this vehicle, that's what it looks like. That's all nice and fitted now. It's actually not too bad. It looks quite good up there, and that should give a nice view down at the back. Right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 10-meter long cable, and I'm going to run it from the cab to the camera at the back. Obviously on this vehicle now it's really easy because it's all empty. I've specifically left some gaps from doing this installation to get the wires to the back for this and other things. Right, I've just ran the camera across the cab. I've got it there, so it's just dangling out the roof. To get it across the radio, I've pulled that out. I've had to pull this bottom bit. I don't know if you can see it. I've had to pull this bottom trim off down here, and then that'll allow me to get right across there up to the cab. So while I've got this like this, I'm going to get the GPS aerial, and I'm going to stick it on the dash over there and run that across. I'm going to get the microphone. I'm going to stick it up there and run the wires down across to the dashboard. And I'm also going to get out of that little DAB kit down there, I'm going to get the DAB aerial, have a look at that, because I think that sticks to the windscreen, and I'm going to stick that up there as well and get all that done and get all the wires ran across whilst the dashboard is in pieces. So what I'll do is I'll see you back when all this is in and all this is back together and the wires are dangling out the dashboard, and then we'll talk through what we've got left and we'll plug it all in and get the stereo system in. And obviously we'll talk about this wiring here as well, what we're going to do with it. Right, that's all the wiring in and all the trims back together. Let's have a look, see what I've done. Right, as I thought with this DAB aerial, it sticks onto the windscreen. It's one of those types, so I've just stuck it up there for now. I've left plenty of cable just in case I've got to pull it off and move it because of that Remis blind. I've got the microphone there. The GPS aerial, I left loads of cable coiled up there, and I've literally just stuck it on the back of this plastic for now on this trim, and I'll figure out where to put it later when that blind's in, like I say, because all this trim's going to have to come off for that Remis blind anyway. And then I've ran the cables across there, across the dash and out, and then I've got all this ready to wire up. Right, what I've done is this one here. This is like a twin USB loom. Because I've not got the adapter for that USB wherever it's gone, what I've done is in here, I've literally just ran out a USB and left it in there for now. So if I want to plug a phone or anything in to charge it up, I can plug it in there, and then that'll do for that. The other side of it, I've plugged into this DAB accessory unit here. I've taped it on so it doesn't come out, and then I've plugged in the aerial on the other side of it there. The camera loom, what I've done is the camera loom came through, it had the video feed. I've plugged it into this little camera loom that comes with a car stereo. This one says backup camera input, look. So what I've done is I've plugged it in and taped it up. The power to the camera, I've used a Wago and I've connected it there, and what it says is 12 volt for backup camera, so I've literally just plugged it into that. This is the other end of that cable. That's plugged into the video feed for the camera. I'll tape that up in a minute. And the power one, the red goes to this cable here, which goes back to that car stereo. And the black, what I've done is I've taken that up. There was a loom here behind here where it used to have like an interior light. I don't need that anymore. So I've used a Wago clip and I've connected up the earth there. So what I'll do is I'll tape that up and I'll stuff it all behind there. And then that's probably ready to do some more insulation up there then. Right, also down here, we've got the microphone input. That'll go into the back of the stereo. We've got the GPS aerial there. One more I had to wire in on this main loom. We've got one there, that brown one. What that says is reverse trigger wire. This is the reverse trigger wire for the car stereo. So on this adapter loom that goes from my Peugeot to the ISO, it had some extra wires, a purple, a green and a pink. The purple one is a reverse wire trigger. So what that does is this sends a reverse signal out into the car stereo to tell it's in reverse so it can turn the camera on. That's the extra bit that I did in there. So now literally it's just a case of plugging all this stuff in to the back of the car stereo here. What I've done with these 4G aerial and the Wi-Fi aerial is I've just plugged them in. I've just left them loose on the back. I'll stuff them into the back of there, because what I'll probably do is I'll not be using the 4G, I don't think, because this van is going to have 4G Wi-Fi built into it anyway. I'll use the Wi-Fi on it, and to be honest, it won't need a super strong Wi-Fi signal because it'll be in this van, the Wi-Fi. These other plugs down here, they're for amplifiers and things like that. I'll plug those in and leave them in so I don't lose them. And then literally I'll tidy all this up, I'll stuff it back in there, and then when I put this in, it clips in at the bottom, you see, and then I push it in at the top afterwards, and those little clips should clip in, and then it should all clip back all nicely, and then I can straighten it all up and level the screen once it's up. So I'm going to get that plugged in now, push it all back and get it all in and see if it works. When you plug in these plugs in at the back, don't worry too much about which one goes where, because they're all different sizes and you can only put them in one way around and in one place. So just plug it in the plug it fits into. Right, I'm going to carry on, I'm going to plug all this in and get it back. Right, once again this crappy fitting kit has struck. This bit of metal here, this is hitting this bit of plastic there, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to get a knife, I'm going to cut a little slot down there so this can fit in. Right, so there it is in, that's all done. One thing is this adapter kit again. This little clips at the back here, they came off, so what that is that's just loose now and pinging in and out, so I'm going to figure out a way of fastening that back. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tidy up. I'm going to use this for a day or so, I'm going to get used to using it, and then what we'll do is we'll set the camera up in front of it, and then I'll go through all how to use it and what I think of it. So I'll see you back in a second. Right, so I've been playing with this a few days now. Here's a few things that I've got to say. The DAB reception's not very good at all. I don't know whether I've fitted something wrong with this aerial, but what I am doing is when we did the connections behind the stereo system, we had to do a little converter for the normal FM's aerial. What I've found out since is there's 3 of those connections. One is the FM, one is the GPS, and one is the DAB. So what I've done is I've ordered an SMA adapter for one of those, for which I'm assuming is the DAB, because it'll have the original DAB aerial on the roof, and that was a really good reception. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick that in and I'm going to see if it's alright. But the actual interface and everything on the DAB is fine, it's just the reception's not particularly great. Another thing with the fascia kit that I got separate, what I've ended up having to do is I ended up having to screw it back. Let's have a look, I'll show you. If you can see behind there, look, I just put some little screws in and I used some of those little number plate things. I've put one of those either side. And that was basically due to the weight of the screen. When you're driving around it bounces and it came off. But that's down to that fascia kit. The other thing, the bit of plastic that I had to cut out at the bottom, apparently that's a common thing and it's common with all of them. I'll put a little photo up now of one that I found on the internet, and that shows you exactly where you need to cut. There's a little red line, and that's common with all of them when you put a doubled-in stereo system in these vehicles. The microphone, I made a couple of calls hands-free. The feedback I got from that was, it sounds okay, just sounds a little bit weird. So I don't know whether that's the quality of the microphone or just because I'm in kind of an empty van at the minute. So it might be a little bit noisier than what it normally would be when it's finished. But the actual stereo system itself, we'll have a look in a second. That works perfectly fine. The sound quality is good. The responsiveness seems okay. There was another bit that kind of annoys me a little bit, but that's common on a lot of them. Let me show you. You see here, look, these buttons for getting back to the menu and things like that. That's on the left-hand side of the stereo because I think it's probably more made for left-hand drive vehicles. So me In the driver's position here, if I want to go back to the home screen or something like that, I've got to reach right across. That's out of my reach, so I have to reach past my reach and find the button, and because it's capacitive, you can't really feel where it is, so you need to look. That annoyed me to death. So what I've done is, some of these up and this down here, I've programmed, I think it was the up to go back to the home screen and the down to go to the CarPlay. Then I don't need to reach right over to the other side, because obviously it's got the volume and everything, but I've programmed the volume and everything onto the steering wheel controls. But that's not specific to this stereo system. A lot of them have these controls up the left hand side and it annoys me. Right, let me get the camera system set up and we'll have a proper look around this menu. Right, this is a super reflective screen, so hopefully you can see it okay. When I'm sat in the driver's seat, it doesn't actually look as reflective as what it does in this camera. I think it's just the angle, and I can't seem to find a decent angle. But over the left hand side, you've got a power button, home button, back button, up and down volume. Like I said a second ago, these are a bit of a pain for me because they're on the left hand side. They'd be better, to be honest, if there was across the bottom, but they do work quite well and they are quite responsive. They're just a little bit out of reach for me personally. Over the bottom, we've got the shortcuts. These can all be changed. You just press and hold and you can move them around. Obviously it's a Android system, so we can do what we want with those. I've just dumped it there. If I move it back again, I can put it where I want to be. So you can customize this screen exactly as you want it. I think if you press and hold, it goes, and then you go into widgets, and there's lots of different widgets you can put on your screen, so you can set it up, everything on this screen exactly how you want it to look. I've just left it as it was for now. The only thing I've changed is I've put CarPlay on there. If I turn my lights off, you'll see these lights on the little buttons, they go off. What that also does is it changes between light and dark modes. So if I go into settings, look, we're in light mode at the minute while the lights are off. If I turn the lights on, then it goes into a dark mode and it darkens it all down, which is nice for when you're driving. In the settings, you've got all the usual stuff, network and internet, so you can set up your Wi-Fi and your hotspots and things like that in there. The car is probably the different one to all other car stereos, is you've got some specific to this system itself here. You've got the enable Android Auto and CarPlay, so you can turn that off if you wish. LED setting, that's these settings over here. You can change the colour of those to whatever you want them to be. Steering wheel keys, this is the important one because this is where you want to set up your steering wheel buttons. So if we go in there, you can see these are the ones I've currently got set up. All you have to do to set one up is literally press the button on your steering wheel. So if I press mute on my steering wheel now, you'll see what happened there is you get a yellow square around it, and then what it does, if I press a new one, answer call, what it does is it pops up with a screen, so then you can go through, pick what you want it to be. This is a normal short press, and then you can have a long press setting as well, so it does something different if you do a long press. And then what it'll do is that saves that into here when you've pressed save, and then that is programming for your steering wheel keys, so you can make them do whatever you want. Obviously two different options, a short press and a long press. Also in car, we've got the amplifier, it's called, but this is actually a graphic equalizer. So if you press on that, you can go in here. You've got quite an extensive graphic equalizer to set up the sound exactly as you want it to be. And it actually sounds quite good. And it's also got the spatial sound settings and things like that. So you can make the sound come from wherever you want it to come from. Frequency cutouts, bass boost and things like that. Navigation, this is where you can set up your default app for the Android front screen. Same again with a voice assistant, and then you've got some driving settings, which turns off watching videos and things like that whilst you're driving. We've got a few more extra settings, which just gives you a couple more just to do with like your rear view camera. Right down at the bottom, this is quite a useful one. We've got a battery voltage display. I've turned it on, look, and you can see up here it says 11.7 volts, so it's telling us what our battery is at the minute, which is actually quite a good little feature. One thing I did notice is out of the box, if you go to About Machine, it says Android version 12 there. Out of the box, this was 12. So what I had to do was I connected to my Wi-Fi, and then I just went in to check for updates, and it went through and it updated all the system and put it onto Android 13. So out of the box, this is actually an Android 12 system, or this particular one was. but it has got the over-the-air updates. So if you go to check updates, then you can check version and things like that, and update it to the latest version, which I thought was quite good. Right, back at the home screen, if I swipe right, this has got all your applications and everything else like you'd normally get on any other Android system. We've got the Play Store, which is good, which means anything on the Play Store you can download and put on this system. So if there's any games or anything you want to play or any streaming services, we've got YouTube and Netflix there. Obviously, so if we go into YouTube, let me connect to my hotspot on the phone first actually and get some internet for us. We're literally, just as I've connected, it's popped up with a little screen saying there's a new version. So since I updated it a couple of days ago, there's another new version. So let me get this downloaded. So at least we can see by this, Eonon are updating their firmware quite regularly, because this was literally 2 days ago. I'd updated it to its latest, and now we've got another little update there again. Right, that's installed. Let's just press this check version again just to make sure. Right, we're on the latest version apparently. Right, where were we? I forgot what we was actually doing now. Right, if we go back to the home screen then. We was doing YouTube, weren't we? Wasn't there an app there before? I can't remember. Anyway, YouTube. Right, if I go into one of my videos and play that, let's maximise it. As you can see there, that is actually a really good picture. I don't know what the quality's set at. Oh, that's set at 480 and it looks really good. Let's go to higher picture quality. That should be HD now, and that looks perfectly fine. I can turn the volume up and down using my steering wheel. So as you can see there, you've got your streaming services. Let me come out of that so you don't hear me twice. So as you can see, Play Store and everything else, so you can download any apps that you want to do. And obviously you can check the apps that you've got on the system to make sure they're the latest ones. You've got a couple more things. You've got some set themes and things like that, so you can change the look of how you want the stereo system to look. But like I said, you can do that all yourself as well if you want. Back at the home screen, I've put CarPlay down at the shortcuts on the home screen, but if we scroll across to the apps, you can see you've got Android Auto there as well, but CarPlay is the one I use. So if I press CarPlay, we're straight into CarPlay there, and this is all your usual CarPlay stuff. This DAB-Z or Z, however you want to pronounce it, application here, this is for the DAB adapter. This application wasn't on the stereo itself. So what I had to do was I had to go to the internet browser on this system, go to the Eonon website, find the adapter, and the APK file was there to download it to make that work. So if you press into that, that goes into the DAB system. As you can see, it's searched through. It's quite a nice little interface. But as you can hear right now, the reception's not quite all that. But when we drive down the road, it does actually clear up and it gets better, but it's a bit hit and miss. But as I said, it could have been something I've done with this antenna. So what I'm going to do, let me just turn that off because that's quite irritating. So like I said, what I'm going to do is I've got that adapter on order so I can use the original car stereo antenna. That could have been an install fault for me. I'll find out when I do this little adapter here and see if that makes it any better. But they're the main features of the stereo system. Obviously, you can angle it and make it however you want. You can angle it up and down, side to side. It's got the little bits at the back you can pull out, and then you can move it up and down as well, get it to the right height. So there's plenty of adjustment that you've got on this stereo system. So that's probably about all I can show you on this. I actually almost forgot there's one more thing I need to show you, the reverse camera. So if I put it into reverse, as you can see there's the camera on. It's not the best quality in the world. That's the camera's fault, not the stereo system. And to be honest, it's a nice view looking straight down from the top, so I can really see if I'm close to anything. So there's the reverse camera. Overall, this is a pretty decent little system, especially for the money as well, because it's not expensive, especially compared to some of the other competition. There is a few little bits and bobs which I didn't like, which I mentioned in the video earlier. But I don't think they're enough to put you off from getting it. I'll put links down below where you can check out one of these for yourself. If I've got any discount codes or anything like that, I'll put those down there as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see some more of these camper van build and some more of the tech reviews and things like that. Like the video if you liked it. Don't forget to comment below anything you want to say. And I'll catch you guys in another video. Cheers.